Well, a generic chain would be, I'll have, there's this plugin called MSED,
Mm-hmm.
and that's at the top of my chain always. And it's basically a mid-side, just a mid-side, vertical lateral type plugin. So you can mute the mid, just the mid, just listen to everything that's panned or vice versa. And I do that just so that, like, if I'm messing with stuff, compression, or if there's EQ or something, I can go in and just basically listen to just the mono signal, just the vocal and the drums, let's say, and see how they're sitting together, or those sorts of things. Then, I go EQ. And then right after that, if there's compression, that's where I put my compression. And then after all that is where I'll do anything, like if I'm doing saturation, like an Oxford inflator or something like that, I'll do that. And then I usually have, if I'm going to use a clipper, that's where I'll use the clipper. And then beyond that, I'll use a limiter. So it's just sort of that would be my chain, would be EQ, compression, then saturation, then sort of clipping, limiting in that row.
And what EQ do you like using in the box?
So right now, I really like the metric. I use a combination of the metric Halo Soundtech. I think that Rick and his crew did a great job. I still own a Soundtech. I've had Soundtechs for. It was the first EQ I bought in the late 90s, was a Soundtech. So I'm very familiar with the Soundtech sound. And I love that. I think it's a great plugin. It's really has a lot of the characteristics of a real hardware Soundtech that are impossible to get, really. And I use that in conjunction with the Pro Q3, which I really like. That one makes dynamic EQ really easy, and I love dynamic EQ. I think that's been a huge game changer for the last decade for me. Just being able to, it's amazing how you can EQ something, or a lot of times I'll just use the gain function without actually EQing it. So I'll get a range, and I'll listen to say, this is what I want. Like I was talking about the vocal earlier. You can put it in the mid. Set it in mid-side mode, put it to just the mid, and put it, let's say at 2K or something like that at the top of the vocal range, and then just turn on the dynamics to the positive point, and then anytime it hits the threshold, it just gives it a little bit, and it helps it continue to move instead of just everything always being EQ'd at that level. So those two EQs are my heavy lifters, the Soundtech and the Pro Q3 in the digital world. I use those a lot. And usually in combination, because the Soundtech's limited in what it can do. It's sort of it is a really good representation of the analog, and because of that, it doesn't have, really tight EQs or the dynamic capability, or it does do mid-side. You could switch it into mid-side mode, but it's more of I feel like it's more of a broad brush EQ, whereas the Pro Q3 can do all kinds of really interesting things. Mid-side and stereo at the same time, and so on and so forth. And of course, the dynamic nature of it's really cool if you use that.
To watch the full video, click the link below and don't forget to subscribe.